gotta go big or go home. We're down to the gold. Never been a better time to put it all on the line. Ooh, yeah. Time to put it all on the line.
Welcome back. We are here once again. It was a little hiatus. Your boy Spencer was over on island time in Maui. Missed a week of football, but I was watching. Had a really good time out there. Got to watch a Seahawks game with my dad, which is, that was a regular occurrence growing up. It's always nice to revisit those good old times with him, watch a win against the Panthers. But Ryan, we remain committed. We remain steadfast. We are here. We're ready to go over this week. What do you think?
That's right. Yeah, some really good football, some really interesting football over the last 2 weeks. I'm really glad that you got to have some time off and go on vacation and get to watch some games with your dad. I have some really fond memories of watching the NFL draft with him in previous years. So very happy for you that you had the opportunity to go do that. Everybody deserves a vacation. But yeah, we had some really great action over the last 2 weeks. There's certainly some games last week that we could have covered, but I think just for the sake of keeping it going and keeping it fresh, we're just going to mostly focus on the Week 4 action. But we gotta stop for a minute here and talk about this game between the Miami Dolphins and the poverty Denver Broncos. Sad to say.
Right, let's hop in the time machine.
Hop in the time machine. Let's go back and check out a historic victory. One that will live in the memory of Denver fans for many years to come, I'm sure. But yeah, final score of that game, 70-20. Spencer, what are your overall thoughts on this? What went right? What went wrong? What are your thoughts? What's your take?
Well, the question for Denver is what didn't go wrong, right?
And what did go right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you really the score 20-70, it almost seems a little bit more respectable than the actual outcome of the game, truthfully. The offense was borderline anemic in this game. The only reason they got the extra 7 points on the board was because of a kick return touchdown from one Mr. Marvin Mims. Shout out to Marvin Mims, though. He's been showing up big for a team that just has not had his back.
Yeah.
But it's good to see. They're going to need a talented young receiver on the rise, considering, Sutton. I can only imagine his time is coming up in Denver with him just being physically and mentally unable to continue with this on the same trend at this point. I would imagine he needs a reset. Probably every player on this roster needs a reset at this point. We're on track for a nuclear explosion of a rebuild for Denver coming up pretty quick here.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw this, but there was a clip of Garrett Bowles in the locker room after that game, and I don't know that I've maybe ever felt more bad for a player after a loss than in that moment in that interview where he's he's played left tackle in Denver for many years. He was a first-round draft pick. He struggled in the early ongoings of his career, as most offensive linemen do, but he's really picked it up in the last few years, and he's become a really respectable, certainly above average left tackle in the league, I would say, and just a completely disheveled, man in the locker room, where he said, I couldn't have said it better than myself, that I have just been here for 7 years and I have done nothing but lose, and I just can't help but feel that, but that's got to be the feeling of everybody in the locker room, right? Like, we on the outside know how much of a grind it is to be an NFL player, to compete at this level for a really long time. Just the day in and day out grind, and like what you put your body through, what you put your family through. And for a guy like Garrett Bowles, who is certainly an above average left tackle in the league, could certainly start on many other teams in the league, to be putting his body on the line like that. He's battled through injury, as a lot of the people on the Denver Broncos roster have. And yeah, I think that interview just said it all, that this is a team that no matter who they would have brought in at head coach, no matter who they bring in at quarterback at this point, it's just a lost cause. It's done. This is a team that has just consistently been beat down for the last at least 7 years. They really haven't been anything noteworthy since Peyton Manning left. And honestly, I don't think that there's anything structural on this roster that you can change at this point to make it a winning team. At this point, like you were saying, a complete just top to bottom. I think you have to start with the front office for even putting a team together to get in this position in the first place. Needs to be where the first decisions are made. Sean Payton, despite the fact that we know he is a good coach, he has proven that he's a good coach in the NFL. I don't think that this is proving that it doesn't matter what kind of talent you bring in at this point. This is a team that is just not in a headspace to win. It's not a team that's in the physical space to win, just getting beat down over and over and over and over again. But with that being said, there is still nothing more humiliating than passing up on the guy that was a homegrown talent from Denver, Colorado. That was your ball boy when he finally became eligible to be a head coach in the NFL. Passing up on him, not even interviewing him, gets a job down in Miami, and then he just goes ahead and he's going to drop 70 on you. That's such a bad look. I don't know about you, but it's just another reason why Mike McDaniel is slowly becoming my favorite coach in the NFL. Just a complete structural nightmare from top to bottom in the Denver franchise. And yeah, like you said, I don't think there's anything that can fix it. It's just got to be a complete nuclear rebuild. Let's wipe the slate clean. Honestly, they should have lost that game this week to the Bears, had a chance at Caleb Williams, and moved on with their lives.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that game, but on the Dolphins side of things, I definitely want to point out the performance of the running backs. I mean, we are getting now into the Kyle Shanahan territory of run schemes and player fit when it comes to the performance of these guys. Obviously, Denver is a horrifically bad team against the run. There's no doubt about that. But that being said, and I believe this is truthfully Devin Achane's only second career game.
Right.
A guy that we were both high on for in terms of his fit with this team, in terms of just his pure raw talent.
Yep.
Goes for 200 yards, a couple scores. Mostert had, I think, 4, including through the air and on the ground.
They both had 4, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, Chain, I think, caught more. I'm just looking at rushing stats. But at the end of the day, like, you know, this is some of the stuff we come to expect from the Shanahan scheme. In the early days of Mostert, what they were able to get done with Matt Breida for a time when they had him. The list goes on and on. Elijah Mitchell. And now Christian McCaffrey's going nuclear for them on a weekly basis, right? That was one of the things I was not hesitant about, but I was going to need to see for me to believe it, right, with Mike McDaniel does he have a masterful handle on the Shanahan run scheme? And I would go as far to say yes, he has mastered it, and to go even a step further, he has expanded upon the Shanahan scheme.
Yes.
We talked about it with the last episode, the insane motions they run. And obviously they are in a very unique position to utilize players like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle pre-snap. I liken it to the Golden State Warriors in a lot of ways, those prime days. You know, their off-ball movement was just as important as their on-ball movement in that, you know, it's basketball. But at the end of the day, like, using, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle's speed, it can be utilized in ways beyond just after the catch runs or deep down the field route running. Their speed is a matchup problem just from a, going in motion basis. And now you add a guy like Devin Achane, who is a borderline 4-2 type of runner, just absolutely lethal in the pass game on top of that. I feel like Denver was getting hit on all angles and had no answers. I remember people talking about during this game, they were literally just running the same plays on them and getting the same result, more or less. That Tua no-look kind of shovel pass to Achane. They ran that twice and scored on it both times. Yeah. So just unbelievable stuff from Miami. As you know, we'll get to the Seattle Giants game that I just watched last night in a moment here, but I liken it to that. Like, yes, this was a quality victory against a very, very subpar opponent, but that does not mitigate or downplay, the importance of what it means for this run game to have an explosion of this level. They now they know. They're not a one-trick pony anymore,
Right.
For so long it was like, oh man, well, all we have is Mostert. Our line isn't all that great in run blocking, and to be fair, they lost to Ron Armstead, but I think it's fair to say they know down the road, if they go against a team that's poor in the rushing defense department, they're going to be able to unload these guys, and they're going to target the shit out of these guys, load them up with carries, and expect a high level of success from them going forward. So.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that I couldn't have said it better myself. I just really am interested in the ways that, like you said, Mike McDaniel has not only taken the Shanahan run scheme, but has added his own little flares to it. Just how creative they've been with the pre-snap motion. In fact, with that Chiefs and Jets game, I noticed a little bit of, we say it all the time. It's something that I'm sure everybody's heard before, but the NFL is a copycat league. And during that Chiefs and Jets game, I saw a lot of pre-snap motion from Andy Reid that was very similar to some of the pre-snap motion that I've seen Miami running up to this point. So clearly this is something that NFL coaches around the league are noticing, or that are at least taking note of, that as a way to get your weapons open. When you have a run game that opens up with A-Chain and with Mostert like this, and then you've got Waddle and Tyreek Hill to gash you in the run game, it's just a recipe for disaster. I think a natural next. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I just wanted to, before we move away, one last thing on Denver. Cliff Kingsbury is a guy who has been completely crucified in the media space and just by fans as well, for a dude that continually seems to do nothing but fail upward, right?
Right.
The classic kind of trust fund kid who just doesn't do anything on the job and then gets a promotion every quarter.
Right.
So, and as far as Kingsbury, that is a pretty accurate representation of his NFL career. I would like to point to Mr. Vance Joseph over here. What evidence has existed to suggest Vance Joseph deserves to be in any kind of major coaching role in any facet right now? He completely failed in the Denver Broncos head coaching job. And
Yes.
Better coaches than him have failed in that. I was willing to give him a break. Then he goes to the Cardinals and becomes the defensive coordinator. Has a historically bad defense there. And now he moves laterally, even though I think all signs and, likelihoods pointed toward him getting a downgrade.
Right.
Or maybe just being out of the league, period, after what happened in Arizona. Denver inexplicably gives him their defensive coordinator job. I mean, as much as I respect Sean Payton, I think he's a good coach. I think it was a massive mistake to just
couldn't agree more.
For the ownership group to cede all of the control in terms of roster decisions and coaching decisions to Payton. I don't know how to defend the decision to hire Vance Joseph as your defensive coordinator, and frankly, Payton hasn't had the best track record of hiring defensive coordinators in the past, in my opinion.
No, certainly not.
I can't remember his name. Rex Ryan's brother. They had for
Yes.
years and years, and he was horrific. You know what I think of the current Saints head coach.
Yeah.
And he was their former defensive coordinator. I'm at a loss for words. Denver is a rudderless ship right now. And the worst part is they went all in on Sean Payton.
Yep.
They do not have a backup plan. They traded every single asset they had remaining to ensure
For a
that
coach. They thought
was
they were
the
a
leader,
coach away from
right?
winning.
And
How
the
does
worst
that
part
make
is,
sense?
all offseason we talked about, can he turn around Russell Wilson? Can Russell Wilson play better? Well, here we are. Russell Wilson is actually playing
He's playing a lot better.
significantly better, and this defense has fallen off a cliff, Ryan.
Yeah.
What used to be an elite unit, fielding, in my opinion, the best corner in the league in Pat Surtain, it's unbelievable the kind of
It's inexcusable.
disaster this has turned into. So,
Yeah, 100%.
all right, I've said my piece.
Right. A natural place to move on to was perhaps one of the matchups of the week this week with the Dolphins taking on the Bills, and the Bills, despite all the good things we had to say about the Dolphins, coming up with a win at home.
A convincing
I don't know,
victory at that.
a convincing victory. I'm not sure how much of this game you got to see, but
I watched a good amount of this.
yeah. What are your thoughts on this? The first thing that I noticed was there's clearly there's divisional games are always bizarre, right? Like no matter how many elite teams you have in a division, it's likely that they're going to end up splitting games. But I don't know what happened to Josh Allen between weeks 1 and 3 to this week 4, but 21 for 25, 320 yards, 4 touchdowns. Just an incredible performance through the air, and along with Stephon Diggs absolutely cooking, hauling in 6 catches for 120 yards and putting up 3 of them tutties. This was just a convincing victory on both sides of the ball. This is the first time that I've seen a defense really be able to put a damper on the Miami Dolphins offense in any way. I mean, Tyreek Hill was held to only 3 catches for 58 yards. Jalen Waddle only had 4 catches for less than 50. They didn't have a single receiver in this entire game catch more than 60 yards. They had Braxton Berrios catch that touchdown, but that was their only touchdown through the air, and even on the ground, they weren't super efficient. You had Devin Achane, who clearly is somebody that they are believing in. He got most of the touches this game, still only recording 8 carries, still got over 100 yards and a touchdown on 8 carries, which is insanity. But yeah, just a really convincing victory against a divisional opponent for the Bills there at home. Just hitting on all sides of the ball. The defense played really well to slow down an incredibly explosive offense. And this is just what Josh Allen needs to do week in and week out in order to continue to have the Bills be a contending team for the Super Bowl. Like we said at the beginning. Actually, let me scratch that. Like I said in our divisional breakdowns, I think that this team's window is closing, and mostly due to the fact that I just haven't seen Josh Allen be able to just be the guy that can just absolutely tear the league apart, especially in a strong division. Now that the Jets are out of it, it's clearly a 2-horse race. This was a really, really telling victory, a really great win at home for the Buffalo Bills. What are your thoughts on this game, Spencer? A really surprising result, in my opinion.
Well, having watched it, I can say, Ed Oliver had himself a day in this game. Mm-hmm. To be honest, as far as the lack of kind of downfield production, it was more or less mostly to do with the front seven just getting home to Tua all day long in this game. Not only that, Ed Oliver was a problem in the run game, especially. He was a big part of just completely blowing up plays that led to guys being able to penetrate in and get the ball out in a few scenarios. I think Mostert fumbled twice in this game. Mm-hmm. But, and then, on to the Dolphins side of things defensively, I believe Eli Apple was a healthy scratch in this game, if I'm not mistaken. And we are more or less on red alert right now with the Miami corner situation, in my opinion. Stephon Diggs is a tough draw no matter who you are. Let's be clear about that. But, they did not have an answer for the Bills' top option in this game. He was getting what he wanted at will, free releases, had the play you saw where he just churns through, keeps those legs chugging, and gets past both defenders. But
hit the pylon, baby.
More or less, like the secondary is becoming a bit of a concern here. Even Xavier Howard is not looking like himself, particularly in this game. But I do expect them to get back down to earth whenever that is they add Ramsey. I think they'll be okay once they add Ramsey. I still believe in Javon Holland, but it's clear that this is not a secondary with a whole lot of depth, specifically at the corner spot. And maybe they should have given Eli Apple a chance, as much as I, don't like the guy personally, or at least I don't like his attitude necessarily, but that attitude is a big part of what works against top receivers like Diggs. It's why he's had games of high quality against players of Diggs' caliber. I think they could really use some of that personally. And I realize he has his moments of terrible play, and he will get got every so often. But I do find it a little weird after, I feel like we both thought Eli Apple played pretty good in the prior weeks.
Agreed.
To this one. So, but yeah, just to go a little further too, with the Bills, the run game was cooking in this.
Right.
Josh Allen led the way as always. Had a few
Right.
nice rushes, but James Cook, a very good, game. I don't think the efficiency was all that great personally, but he did get the touchdown. Got what he could there. More than anything, though, I feel like the short yardage backs that the Bills brought in this offseason did come to play really well. Like Latavius Murray had a nice catch down the sideline where he picked up extra yards. Damian Harris had a healthy per carry average, actually ended up with more carries than Latavius, but both of those guys look like solid contributors. They look like they belonged on the field. And
Right.
I think when it came time to gut it out and just move the ball, when the Miami front seven was still playing really good at times, but they were just doing a great job of running misdirection, getting screens on the perimeter to some of their backs. And I like a lot of the stuff we said in the divisional breakdowns when we were talking about the Bills. I thought this is the direction they were going, to become a little bit more run centric, try
Right.
to pull that defense closer to the line of scrimmage so you could hit more big plays down the sideline, and Diggs was the beneficiary of that in this game. So
Certainly. Yeah. Very, very good game. I'm excited for them to meet head-to-head once more. I'm not sure what week that's in, but they will play the Bills in Miami at a later date. Let's check out another game here, Spencer. There's one that I really wanted to talk about, which is this Chiefs and Jets game that was on Sunday Night Football. I just got to say,
surprisingly good game right here.
yeah, it's a very, very good game. Yeah, and I just got to say, we've had plenty to say about Zach Wilson, if memory serves. But talk about a guy who has an insane amount of hype the moment that he gets drafted, right? I still believe to this day that this was the biggest pro day swindle of all time, to get drafted in the first round by Zach Wilson. We clearly knew his skill set coming in. The Jets knew his skill set coming in. That's why they made the move to get Aaron Rodgers. And if you're Zach Wilson, you're expecting to sit behind one of the greatest to ever play the position, despite how we feel about Aaron Rodgers. We don't have a lot of friends on this show, do we?
It's Jesse Bates.
Yeah, Jesse Bates.
And
Jesse
that's it.
Bates is
Just
the only
Jesse
one.
Bates, yeah.
Jesse Bates, if you're listening, just send us a jersey and we'll keep hyping you up for your career, my man.
Right.
But I gotta say, just the expectation for Zach Wilson could not be lower coming into this game. Literally, it had people screaming their teeth out how angry he made them the previous week. I don't know if you saw that clip of a Jets fan in the pouring rain, and he's yelling at Zach Wilson and his teeth fall out. That's how angry they are up there in New York.
I didn't see that, but that's
Oh my
amazing.
God. Yeah, it was so funny. But despite that, I really, really just want to say that I admire how Zach Wilson continues to step up to the plate in the midst of all of this adversity. I can't imagine what it feels like to quarterback a team where you know that anytime you go out onto the field and make a mistake, that your own home field is going to boo the shit out of you. And they're going to make you feel like they do not want you there. Nobody wants you there. This was a year we were supposed to contend. This is a team that is too good to start you. This is a team that we cannot waste a year on your talents. And yet, week after week, he continues to just step up to the plate. And against his biggest challenge here, I think this is the best game of his career that he has ever played. He really stuck in there with Mahomes. Not only that, but he finished with more completions, more yards, and more touchdowns than Mahomes. And he's the first quarterback to ever do that against Patrick Mahomes.
Is that true? Oh my God.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he played extremely, extremely well, given the fact that no matter what, I think maybe there's got to be something in his head that's clicking that's just no matter what I do, it's like people are going to be angry about it, so I might as well go out here and I throw caution to the wind and I keep balling and I try to make big plays and don't try to play hero ball as much because that's when you throw picks. But he really took care of the ball except for the last big fumble of the game. But even then, I felt really bad for him. He's on the sideline. He played probably the best game of his career. And he's like, first thing he's telling all of his teammates, he's like, it's completely my fault. And even at the press conference, he's like, yeah, that's on me. We can't have that. We lost the game because of me.
Right.
But really, they were in the game in the first place because of him, because the defense didn't play that particularly well. I just really got to say, I really gained a lot of respect for Zach Wilson after this start. If he can keep up any of this and like take this momentum, now that you've got some good games on tape, like look at this. Like, this is the reigning world champions. This is how we get the ball into the hands of our playmakers. This is how we stick into games. And there were some really questionable calls that really, really might have changed the outcome of this game. So, maybe that's not really all entirely on Zach Wilson. And I just want to put this out there. All of the Swiftie conspiracies that like the NFL's rigging it so that way all of the Swifties can be happy that the Chiefs won.
Right.
I don't think that's true at all. I think you all need to go out and touch just a single blade of grass. I beg you all to touch
just a little bit.
Get a little dirt underneath your fingernails and just ground yourself in reality on this round earth that we live on.
Yeah. Reset your electromagnetic field real quick,
because there was the call that they gave the Jets a safety when, in my opinion, that was clearly not a safety. Like, there were calls that went both ways. Obviously, this is not the first game of the existence of the NFL where an outcome of the game was changed by a questionable call, and it will not be the last.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say,
I think we got to mention the MVP of this game for the Chiefs. Another clutch DPI from Sauce Gardner in a crunch situation. He continues to do it, folks. He continues to show up when it matters most, and major hats off and the ultimate respect to the top corner that is Sauce Gardner. But anywho, I kind of disagree with you just a tad. Like, I think the Jets defense, all in all, played pretty good this game. Any game where you manage to hold the Chiefs to only 23 points, I feel like is a win in most defenses' books.
That's a good point.
But that being said, they could have played better, as I just said. There were costly penalties.
Did get two picks also.
Yeah, and they managed to get the ball turned over against a tough opponent. So honestly, pretty good game from the Jets, all in all. But
I rescind everything I said.
No, not necessarily. Like, I agree with you. They could have played better. I mean,
Certainly.
there were certain penalties in key moments that just blew them the game. And I realize Robert Saleh being all up in arms, but like, it's like, bro, like, coach your team better. That they made some seriously costly mistakes. And I will admit, I'm gonna mention right now, there was that 3rd and 22 with the big Mahomes scramble.
Oh my God!
And Jermaine Johnson
was annoying to watch.
He was just held. Forever and ever.
The whole play.
And Mahomes kind of just looked around and he's like, nobody's going to call anything? Okay. And he just shoots right up the middle of the field for like 30 yards. And, that was egregious for sure.
Just as a side note, I want to say on that play specifically, I think Chris Collinsworth said the phrase, "This is how Mahomes breaks your back right here." I want everybody that listens to this show, the next time that the Chiefs are on prime time, which I'm sure is going to be sometime soon, and Chris Collinsworth is commentating on his favorite son, Patrick Mahomes. Everybody, I want you all to take a shot every single time that Chris Collinsworth is glazing. Every time that Chris Collinsworth says the phrase, "This is how Mahomes breaks your back." Every time he says, "This is what makes Mahomes so special right here." I have never seen anything like this.
Only he can do this kind of stuff.
Only he literally threw a pick, Spencer. I don't know if you saw this moment. He threw a pick, and the replay, Chris Collinsworth, he draws the arc, and he goes, "Nobody's better at this arc pass than Mahomes right here. This is such a good job by Mahomes." I'm like, homie, it was an interception. It was an interception.
Nobody is good at throwing a deep interception as Pat Mahomes, man.
This is just this is how Mahomes breaks your back right here.
Yeah.
By giving you the ball back. Anyway, this was one of my favorite games to watch of the week because I thought it was going to be a complete blowout. I was like, this is this is going to make some prime content for all of the new Swiftie fans that are coming in and enjoying the NFL with the rest of us.
It was a fun game.
It was a really fun game.
I wanted to point toward something. I don't know if you noticed it, but Do you remember the Breece Hall, the breakaway run?
Yes.
Where he's kind of running and Garrett Wilson is like running behind him and he starts celebrating. He's like, "That's a score, touchdown!" And and Breece Hall ends up getting caught from behind on that play.
Right.
And I couldn't help but look at that and be like, "Wow." I think last year Breece Hall would have never been caught on that play. I still think he can be a very talented, productive back in the league. Don't get me wrong, don't jump down my throat, Jets fans. All I'm saying is maybe that extra gear of explosion that was what was making Breece Hall an all-time, Hall of Fame level talent potentially. I'm wondering if just a tick of that is gone or chipped off a little bit from the major injury he suffered, because I remember seeing that play and I don't know who was chasing him, but Breece Hall does not get caught on that play usually.
No.
There's a reason Garrett Wilson is celebrating the way he was, so it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. I'm hoping that it's just he's still not really 100% and he can get back into that initial game speed we know him for.
Yeah.
But, something to bring up. And then on the other side of the Jets for the passing game and everything, Zach Wilson, again, played a great game. Like we said, had that strike to Lazard in the touchdown to Lazard. That was unbelievable.
Yes.
An absolute laser beam to Lazard, where only he could catch it. I think the DB was in absolute disbelief that he wasn't able to get to that ball, considering the tight window it was in. That was like
that back shoulder pass. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's some second overall pick type of talent, man, getting displayed on the field. And we've talked a little bit about how we think this secondary for the Chiefs is underrated. So yeah, I'm interested to see if Zach can build off of this and get better. I would look at the fumbled snap that he had as a Jets gonna jet moment. I don't really necessarily put that on Zach. It's just like, it's sort of a team thing. In the biggest moments against the biggest opponents, they seem to fall short, and that was just another example of it. I don't.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Like, it's almost got to be one of those things that, like, almost when you lose the fans, it's just as bad as losing the locker room. That, like, when you're in a big moment against a team like the Chiefs, with the hype around this game specifically, and all of the New Jersey sales, and Taylor's in the building, and like everybody's coming to watch you get your ass beat, and you're winning, you're picking off Pat Mahomes, like, and you're in the moment that, like, oh my God, we might win. Like, oh my God, Breece Hall, you're going to score. I'm going to forget to throw a block because I can't believe that we're about to, like, go up in points right here. I just really think that if Zach Wilson can take this and move forward and play better football, I'm rooting for him. I got to say, after this game, I really am rooting for him going forward. I hate to see anybody go out there in a position like that and just, that at home, you're facing an even more hostile stadium than when you're playing on the road. So hope that he continues to play better, and very impressive performance. Let's check out another game here.
Couldn't agree more. If I can just maybe hijack our transition here for a moment, but speaking of Sauce Gardner, I would like to transition to a game that had a corner who happens to be better than Sauce Gardner.
Okay.
There was a little game that I watched last night called Seahawks Giants. And just a little 5'11" corner out of Illinois. He happens to come up with a
97?
game-changing, momentum-flipping, all-time MetLife play. On a field where there has been unbelievable play after unbelievable play. I think this is at least in my top 5 that I've ever witnessed personally. 97 yards to the crib. Hello, Devin Witherspoon. Hello.
Man alive, yeah. Just right there, that's why you take him at 5. I know that there was some debate about, you and I talked about this, whether or not it was going to be Nolan Smith or Jalen Carter or even Devin Witherspoon. Like, this is why you get Devin Witherspoon right there. And, I think that creating a secondary like that, like you said, it's just a complete momentum shift. And what a great moment for the rookie that we both were very, very high on coming in out of Illinois this year. Honestly, most of the players in that Illinois secondary, as we've said before, were just complete dogs. Yeah, another very good game, very efficient game on the ground for Seattle as well. Kenneth Walker uh, running the ball 17 times here for 79 yards, 4.6 on average, getting the tutty. Notice that they're kind of plugging away more with Zach Charbonnet, slowly getting more carries week to week. He was incredibly efficient on the ground with 5 attempts for 31 yards with a staggering 6.2 average yards per carry on that. Very, very nicely done. I think Noah Fant had himself quite the game as well. Yeah, obviously you watched this game pretty closely. Is there anything else that you would like to point to here? Obviously the performance on the defensive side of the ball as well. Clocking, what is this, 10 sacks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sacks. Oh my goodness.
And that is
Oh
that
my
is
God.
that is a tied for the team record, 11 sacks.
My God.
It's kind of unbelievable, frankly, that the Giants were in striking distance of making this a one-score game at a point. But that kind of goes to show you the struggles of the offense in this game to some degree. They had their moments. The run game was clicking, no doubt about it. But in between the Geno Smith exit for a portion of time on the the drop tackle on his legs, which is a dirty, horrible play that I won't get into.
On the sideline, too, no less.
I'm going to get really pissed off if I talk about it. But, yeah, shame on you, Isaiah Simmons. I don't know what you're doing there, what the point of that was. But, yeah, it was horrible. And I was freaking out when it happened. But that being said, between that and the insane shuffle going on the offensive line for Seattle, both tackle starters out for this game again. They lose a guard. They plug their center in at the left guard spot. They put their rookie center in. They put their rookie right guard in, and Anthony Bradford. And those guys showed out in the run game. Even so, they've been doing this. They did it last week against Carolina. Anthony Bradford, the fourth-round pick out of LSU. This guy's athletic scores were through the roof. And, I mean, against some top-level competition, right? We're talking about Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams. Last week, they're talking about Derek Brown, right? These are some of the top-end D tackles in the entire league, and Bradford has been ragdolling guys in the run game. So it's interesting to see him doing that. I mean, we talked about how Phil Haynes, he was a weak point for this offensive line already. If Bradford can continue this level of play and he's getting those valuable snaps, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bradford just flat-out supplant him going forward. Yeah. But let me just tell you a little bit more about Devin Witherspoon, because let me just tell you, like last week, we didn't get into his stats, right? We're talking about 11 total tackles against Carolina. 8 of those are solo, by the way. That's more or less his second career game ever, putting up those kinds of numbers.
Right.
And he's playing at the outside corner spot in this game. Now we come into New York. 7 total tackles, 6 of those solo. Gets himself 2 sacks, 1 on a corner blitz, and then another on a similar kind of pressure package, and a pick 6.
Insane. And a pick 6.
Multiple pass breakups. I mean, this is like, I'm trying to not be a homer here, but I'm not trying to overblow it. This is a all-time performance for a young player. This is a breakout. They were talking about in the post game last night, like, this is the type of field where you make a play like that and it'll change your life. Odell Beckham had that moment for himself on the reach back, iconic catch he had for the touchdown. And this is
10 years ago now, by the way.
Yeah, unbelievable. And I think this is on that level of jaw-dropping kind of playmaking from Witherspoon. We talked about it before. Like, we think Daniel Jones is at least an underrated quarterback.
Certainly.
He wasn't working with a lot tonight. Don't get me wrong, but that was an instinctual play from Witherspoon. He's split between 2 different wide receivers. He had to read how the ball was going to come in. He doesn't even jump the route on the inside of the receiver's pocket. He has to come around the outside to catch it clean. Yeah.
I even saw on Twitter where they were asking him about it, and he's like, yeah, just noticed in film that he loves to stare down his first option. So rookie coming into the league and watching the film, noticing tendencies, and then being able to take the notice of those tendencies into a 97-yard pick six because he noticed that the $160 million man, $160 million man, likes to stare down his first option. So house that shit. You love to see it.
I mean, a lot of people laughed about Pete Carroll talking about like Troy Polamalu comps for Devin Witherspoon, and it's like, of course he doesn't think he's Troy, at least not yet, right? But like that really showcases the kind of instincts this kid possesses. The fact that he's already clicking with the film study. I mean, when we talk about those type of plays, we're usually talking about NFL veterans who are studying tendencies on film and then translating it into the game like that. But, just to get into the defense more, 11 sacks on the day. Almost everybody got a piece. Even Jamal Adams nearly recorded himself that first sack in the first 9 games of this game. But that guy is absolutely snake bitten right now. I'm at a loss for words, to be honest. I'm just glad it was a concussion, frankly. He will be back, and we're going to try this whole thing over again. Hopefully that was just a hiccup, and this is the start of what will be a very great season for Jamal, because when he was out there for those 9 plays, Ryan, he looked unstoppable. He had the near sack on Daniel Jones, picked up another pressure on Jones on another rush, and then absolutely leveled the running back on just a check down, caught him dead to rights and destroyed him. So it's clear that the guy still is amazing when he can get on the field.
Spencer, I'm only saying this because I'm also drinking a heavily sedated portion of this, but I really appreciate your copium with Jamal Adams.
I'm coping. I'm gonna stay coping, baby.
If you were not talking to an incredible Michael Thomas fan, I don't think you would get this reaction, but I understand your joy of those 9 plays, and I will not deny that to you, but it is sad that we both have guys that are just like, yeah, Michael Thomas, he's coming back, he's good for 6 catches for 50 yards a game, isn't that insane? We're like, Jamal Adams came in, 9 plays, hot damn, he got himself a sack before he's gone again.
I mean, don't get me wrong, at this point, I can't say my concern is any higher than it was, because it's more or less more of the same. But again, what I will say is, like, after all of the crazy bone injuries and tearing his fucking hamstring and all of this wild shit that takes way longer to rehab from, some of it like a year more or more. Yeah. Like, for it to just be a concussion, that's good at least. And
Grateful
we are
for that.
going into our bye week, so hopefully.
All right. Well, let's take a look at another game here. One game that I thought was particularly interesting was where was it? Was this Colts game? The Colts versus the Rams. Anthony Richardson had himself a day. I don't think it's insane to say, Spencer, that he clearly, to me, is of the first-round quarterback picks, he is playing the best. C.J. Stroud is actually playing incredibly well as well. But, Anthony Richardson is...
You sure about that? You sure about that?
No, I'm not sure about anything. The fact that these are 2 teams that we both expected to be incredibly bad coming into the season. They're both playing well above expectations. There are breakout stars that never would have expected, at least in my opinion. Anthony Richardson, we knew what his skill set would be, but he's already better than what we expected him to be in his first year taking over for this Colts offense.
There's no denying that.
Played incredibly well. He's not completing a lot of his passes. He only went 11 for 25, but what he did complete, he did not turn the ball over. He didn't throw any picks. He threw 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he was incredibly efficient. He even got in on the ground for 10 rushes for 56 yards and a tutty. And again, Zach Moss being the continues to break out for them, which just goes to show, man, that it's really like I understand both sides of the running back issue, right? Especially when you have Jonathan Taylor sitting there not playing a game. Is he going to play for the Colts at all this year? I mean, with Zach Moss playing like this, There's no reason to, right? There is clearly some hypocrisy here in this whole running back market thing, right? Even with like Austin Eckler and with Jonathan Taylor, that like, hey, yeah, you know, you've been really busting your ass and you've been, you know, you've been a generational running back for our franchise, and you're just not worth the amount of money that you want. So either take it or leave it. Oh, by the way, if we're going to trade you, we want multiple first round picks and we want compensation. That is what you're worth. But this is exactly what is the situation, right? Jonathan Taylor has not played a single snap this year, and yet they have a premier running back right now, at least a premier production running back right now in Zach Moss that is playing incredibly well. You've got guys that are just making plays all over the field for them, and I'm just really, really excited to see Anthony Richardson continue to play so well. And I know that you're excited about where I'm going to go with this next, but what about the complete surprise breakout of one Puka Nacua? 39 receptions through the first 4 weeks of a career, shattering the all-time NFL record by 9 receptions, I believe.
The train continues to roll on in the Puka Nacua world. It is his world, and we are living in it, Ryan.
Offensive player of the year right now, or not player of the year, offensive rookie of the year, excuse me, is CJ Stroud and Puka Nacua, and it's those two aren't even close to anybody else. Well, obviously, there's still 75% of the season to play, but it's those two right now, and nobody else is even close.
Yeah, and it's, it's worth noting, this was a different kind of game from Puka. We've seen very highly productive games, high target totals, touchdowns and everything. But this was almost like the Cooper Kupp arrival game for Puka or something,
right?
Because we're so used to, we have this expectation of Cooper Kupp, like when it's the biggest moment and they need a score. We know who the ball's going to, and we know who's going to take it the distance, right? And in the end of this game, where the Colts manage a very impressive comeback from a game that the Rams had just jumped out to a big lead on them in, and they were kind of searching for that answer. Tutu Atwell had a bit of a down game by his recent standards in this one. Really, nobody on offense was killing it besides, I guess you could say, Kyron Williams, but that was really more on just a red zone efficiency standpoint,
Right.
He did get in the end zone quite a bit, but, his per carry average remains the same. He's an average, maybe a slightly above average running back.
Right.
And just, is never going to be overly efficient on a per carry basis or even on a per reception basis. But there was a moment there where they were looking for their answer. They were looking for, how do we get ahead in this game? How do we put the stamp on this victory? And lo and behold, Puka Nacua comes clean off of a nasty route, catches the ball, turns upfield, hits a juke on a man, breaks through and scores the game-winning touchdown. I mean, that is a huge moment for Puka Nacua, because we've seen receiver after receiver come and go, the DJ Charks of the world, the Allen Robinsons of the world. Sure, they can put up nice numbers on high reception totals, right? If you target a guy a bunch, then they'll have good yardage. But to see Puka come through in a massive moment and more or less just win the game for the Rams, I mean, that was a moment of arrival. That was a moment of, this guy isn't some fluke. He's the real freaking deal.
100%.
And it puts me in a mind state where, you add Cooper Kupp back into this offense.
Oh, my God.
I think they're going to be dangerous 100%. This is a dark horse playoff team. This is a borderline wild card contender here, if you ask me. And as a Seattle fan, man, I'm a little bit worried, because they already took us for a ride in that first game, and we're going to have to play them again at some point, and they're going to be even stronger than they were in the first game. So
and it's interesting because I saw this. I think I must have seen it on Twitter somewhere. Where Puka Nacua was talking about how closely he's worked with Cooper Kupp through training camp, and Cooper Kupp has been the one that's like been hyping him up. He's like, man, we know what you're capable of doing. Like, you are good enough to be in this league, and like he's really, really working with Puka Nacua one-on-one. And somebody said, God damn, like Cooper Kupp should just be a wide receiver coach at this point. Like, obviously the guy's still going to come back and play, but if he can do that for a guy like Puka Nacua that nobody saw coming, we did touch on him when we did the divisional breakdowns, and we liked his skill set coming out of BYU, but I would have never expected nearly 40 receptions in the first 4 weeks of a career, and to just completely like change the narrative about this team, right? Like we thought this was going to be a complete nearly tank year for the Rams, like that they had no shot at winning. I think that they're clearly, like you said, a fringe playoff team at this point, maybe even better. And it's interesting in tandem with the performance of Joshua Dobbs in Arizona, who's playing a lot better than anybody else expected, which honestly I love to see. It's just every team in the NFC West has just had some breakout stars that really are changing the course of the season on a week-to-week basis, which is really exciting.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't have said it better myself. Even, that being said, like the we talked quite a bit about the Rams defense, kind of a regression that we both thought was coming or saw coming to some degree, and hasn't hit yet, really. I mean, 23 points allowed to the Colts isn't ideal, but it was good enough to win you this game, and Donald continues to be himself, records a sack in this one. They're by some miracle, figuring out how to get consistent pressure out of this weird amalgamation of young defensive line prospects and veterans that they've pulled together here. But the one guy I'd like to shout out to is Akello Witherspoon. He has definitely drawn my eye in the few Rams games I've watched this year. We know if he has good surrounding scheme and good talent around him, he can put together really good games. He did it with the 49ers quite a bit. And he's turning it around with the Rams here, man. He's really found himself again after bouncing around the league. I mean, he spent a year in Seattle, got traded. He spent a year on the Steelers, left in free agency, and now here he is on the Rams, and he's playing respectable, a good brand of football again, like what I used to see out of Akello Witherspoon. So good on him.
Yep, 100%.
Defined by LA.
100%. All right, time to let's move on to another game here. One game I wanted to talk about was this Commanders versus Eagles game. Overtime. Please. Oh boy, the 4-0 Eagles seem to, no matter what, man, these guys are just never out of a game. I just got to say a quick shout out. We had a lot of love for this guy in our breakdowns, and I think he played exceptionally well. Sam Howell, 29 for 41. Clearly, this is a guy that they have no problem letting grip and rip it. He threw the ball 41 times and didn't throw a pick.
No.
I mean, my God, almost 300 yards and a touchdown.
That's awesome stuff from Sam Howell, man.
Awesome
That's
stuff.
Awesome stuff.
Yep. You really love to see it. And you got your guys, Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, by far the biggest pass catchers in this game. Scary Terry went for 86 yards on 8 receptions. Curtis Samuel not quite as efficient, 51 yards on 7 receptions. And then you did have Jahan Dotson, everybody's sleeper fantasy darling, despite the fact that he's not putting up a ton of numbers right now. He did haul in a touchdown. And then Byron Pringle did have a nice little catch. I don't know if you saw that one. But it was just a really great game on both sides of the ball for both teams. I mean, you got two guys that were playing quarterback that just were incredibly efficient, were finding the weak spots in the defense and playing their matchups and playing incredibly well. Jalen Hurts, 25 for 37, 319, and 2 touchdowns. And I just got to say, something that's been really surprising to me is just how efficient DeAndre Swift has been on this Eagles team. I was not expecting him to be a guy to come in and like lead a committee, right? Like he's clearly their RB1. He's getting it done on the ground in key moments. But hello, AJ Brown, man, my God.
Yeah.
9 receptions for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. When that guy gets going, man, there's no stopping him. He's just too big. He's too fast. He's just better than you. When he and Hurts are cooking, there's no stopping him. They also had a great game on defense. Just their playmakers doing their things. Nicholas Morrow recording at 10 tackles and 3 sacks. Josh Sweat getting himself a sack as well. And somebody else that we loved on our breakdowns as well is Hassan Reddick getting himself a sack as well. Just a really, really great game, just a back and forth battle here. After the Eagles put up an unanswered 11 points in the third quarter, the Commanders stuck in there to come back a little bit, put up 14 more points to the Eagles 10 before losing in a field goal in overtime, not even a touchdown. So just the Commanders are just a really, really gritty team, man. It reminds me of that Week 2 win against the Broncos where despite the fact that you hit a Hail Mary pass as Russell Wilson, you still lose the game to the Commanders. Like, this is just a team that doesn't quit, man. And despite the fact that they took their lumps last week against the Bills, this is a team that never count them out, man. They are going to fight until the last whistle and the last snap of the game, and putting up this kind of performance with Sam Howell against one of the only 2 remaining undefeated teams in the league, I just got to give my kudos, man. The Commanders are they were just a couple of close games away, or I guess not, one wasn't close at all, but they were a couple of close plays away from perhaps stealing one here from the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. I don't know if you saw any of that game, Spencer, but it was a really, really fun back and forth game that I just wanted to touch on a bit.
I wish I had seen more of it. I was kind of keeping up on Red Zone, but yeah, I mean, the thing that stands out to me most about Sam Howell here is, like, I love the distribution of targets for these guys. I realize in an OT game, those numbers are going to be kind of bumped up a little, but, this is exactly how I want to get it done if I'm Ron Rivera. You got, 8 receptions for Terry McLaurin, 7 for Samuel. You get a couple targets to De'Ami Brown on some deep shots. You get Jahan Dotson with 4. He gets the score. Logan Thompson even gets himself a few. That's perfect. The strength of this Commanders team, right, is the diversity of talent in all these different spots. But what a very interesting game in terms of a straight up quarterback duel, really. Yeah. Sam Howell and Jalen Hurts both with highly efficient performances. I think I'm more impressed with what Hurts did, but when you consider what Howell was up against defensively, you can't discount it. I mean, the dude was cooking,
playing lights out,
and
playing lights out.
Going back to Hurts, man, I mean, can you ask for anything better than this performance from Jalen Hurts? Last week the prior episode, I talked about how I felt that there were some hang-ups in the Philly passing game. They were having a hard time getting on the right terms with each other, with the receivers. This is the game where they figured it out. Jalen Hurts, again, a great distribution of targets around, 9 receptions for AJ, 7 for Devonta. Devonta nearly got to 100 yards himself.
Yep.
But yeah, 25 for 37 is perfect. 300 yards and a couple scores for Hurts. And on top of that, he adds 9 rushes in this game, not the highest per carry average on those. That's something I'd like to point back to with Sam Howell, too. On top of 290 yards and a score, that's not overly impressive stat line. I think the 29 for 41 is what makes us kind of raise our eyes a bit.
Right.
But the 6 scrambles for 40 yards total, like, Sam Howell is looking like Josh Allen light out there a little bit.
Right.
I mean, he really is.
Those are just drive sustaining, right? Like on both sides, for Hurts and for Howell. Like if you're willing to like put your body on the line, go out there and like get the yards that you need no matter what, like, and sustain a drive, especially on third down conversions. Like that's how you stay in games. That's how you stay in close games with a team like the Eagles that are elite on offense and elite on defense. With a Commanders team that I don't know if you agree with this, but I would say are pretty good on offense, are pretty good on defense, and like they just have the grit, man. Like Sam Howell is just a guy that's gonna do whatever he can to put you in positions to win. Love that.
Exactly. And like, with Howell, I think at the end of the day, like, this guy, this kind of game, to play the way he did in this game and for them to lose the way they did, it doesn't even feel like a loss to me, because this is the arrival game for Sam Howell. This is the game where we're not going to win in spite of this guy. This guy is a true contributor to our team.
Yep.
We can't win without this guy. And that's where you want to be. I told you, Ron Rivera is on a semi-hot seat, but like to put all of his faith into Sam Howell and have it be paying dividends, and he's playing well, and like you said, they cut him loose. They're letting him play free. Hats off to Ron Rivera. He's doing a really good coaching job over here in Washington. So.
Yep. Agreed. All right, let's move on here to another game. Just an interesting storyline here. Not an interesting game to watch at all. But the Dallas Cowboys put in the whoop on the New England Patriots.
Oh my goodness!
My goodness. I think I'm confident in saying this at this point that the Mac Jones experiment has failed considerably.
Oh man!
And not only that, but I think that this just speaks to like a larger, like global debate about the NFL, whether or not it was the chicken or the egg with Belichick and Brady. And I think it's clear as day at this point that Belichick wasn't a particularly winning coach prior to Brady, and post Brady, he has yet to win anything. And Mac Jones is, in my opinion, after this type of game in the season that he's had so far, is not the guy moving forward. I think Bailey Zappi could easily go out there and play just as well as Mac Jones for not Mac Jones money. Just a really, really dismal performance on both sides of the ball.
Well, it's a different kind of NFL, Ryan. Like, in the old days with Bill Belichick, I mean, he is indisputably one of the greatest defensive coaches of all time, if you ask me. And even in this day and age, he's continued to field great defenses. They did, I believe they lost Judon in this game. They might not have even had him. I know he had an injury of some kind. And then they lose Christian Gonzalez on top of that. I mean, those are two very, very important cogs in this defense. But that being said, the defense was put in a position of 0% chance of success. I mean, Mac Jones comes out, turns the ball over twice.
3 times. He fumbled it also.
3 times, thank you. Horrifically inefficient. Doesn't break 200 yards passing. The run game gets completely shut down. Not a single player averaged more than 3 yards per carry on this offense on the day.
Yeah.
When to go it back in, like in the old days, yes, Belichick could bring in a guy like Garoppolo or a guy like Brian Hoyer, and that was a little bit of a different NFL, Ryan, right? Like you could get a team to go into a defensive grind with you. You could play a certain style to make the game the way you want it to be. And in this current NFL, I think it's fair to say that if you are in a position to where you're starting a guy who can't be explosive and push the ball downfield, stretch the field, utilize the sidelines, just a quarterback who's at least mid-tier or higher, then you're in huge trouble in this NFL because the calls are designed to go toward the offense. It's an offensively driven league. The game has evolved. And just playing grinded out style defense, we're going to run the ball, all this. We've seen with teams like the Titans in the past, or teams like the Falcons. You're capped in the level of success you can have playing that style nowadays. Unless you
100%.
It becomes a game of, can our overall talent just outweigh the other team? And if we turn this into a grindy match like that, we just out-tough them and we out-talent them. And it's very, very hard to do that now. Only teams like the Niners really are capable of doing that, and I would say that's because their talent is it's just
that much higher,
heads and above over their opponent on a week-to-week basis. So, yeah, like you said, Mac Jones is done. It's over. And I know Belichick is playing the kind of backpedal game of I just took him out because there was no point.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. At the press conference, there's guys that are was it because he was playing badly? He goes, there's just no point in leaving him in there. Well, is he the starter moving forward? Like I said, there's just no point in leaving him in there. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Mac Jones? No point in leaving him in there.
There's been no point in leaving him in there for 3 seasons straight now, basically. I mean, he had that first season that was okay, but even then it wasn't show-stopping. And then it's just more of the same for the Patriots. We haven't even talked about Dallas because we just expect this from them. But, you know,
despite getting whooped on last week by the Arizona Cardinals of all teams.
I mean, let's talk about Dak Prescott. This man was freaking serving, man. He was throwing everything on these guys. Highly efficient performance. Only 6 incompletions on the day.
Yep.
Only had to throw for 1 score in this game just because it was a defensive onslaught that was driving their success. But, yeah, not pretty, Ryan. Not pretty.
And talk about distributing targets. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different receivers hauling in catches in that game from Dak Prescott. The leading of which was Jake Ferguson, who, as a surprise, this is a common thing in our fantasy league where, I was a big Schultzy truther, and now that he's down with clearly a talented CJ Stroud, he's not playing nearly as well. I think it maybe just might have been Dak making him better, because now Jake Ferguson is like one of the most productive tight ends in the NFL, filling in the hole from by Dalton Schultz. Just an incredibly efficient game, and I mean this defense is it's just bad to the bone, dude. Like when they get going, they are hard to get anything going on. I mean, clearly this is an inferior opponent in the Patriots, but the games that they have won mighty handily, and Dallas is cooking. And it's interesting because this actually surprised me that Dak is the longest tenured NFL quarterback in the league now that there's no Brady and no Breeze or any of these guys. He is now the longest tenured quarterback in the NFL. So if there was ever a moment for Dak Prescott to continue to show out, it's right now. You have been starting the most. You are the most experienced quarterback starting in the NFL at this point. And it's interesting to see where it's going to go from here.
Doesn't it surprise you? Look at Micah Parsons' stat line this game: 1 tackle for 1 attempt, no sacks. It was pretty clear what they were doing with Micah Parsons in this game. I think he was double, triple team all throughout. And it's good to see for Dallas fans and Dallas, the team. It's good to see the other guys getting home. Sam Williams and Dante Fowler record sacks. Hello, Deron Bland. I'll be real, I didn't even know your name before this game, but records 2 interceptions. This Dallas defense is deep, and I was interested to see how they would respond to the loss of Trayvon Diggs. At the end of the day, they had a completely outmatched opponent here, so the remains to be seen exactly what his impact will be like. But
and I think it just goes back to what you were talking about earlier, right? Of like the old days of the NFL, and like what is the one thing we know about Coach Belichick's style, right? Is that from day one, every time you play the Patriots, they are going to take away your number one option no matter what, and typically that was enough to win you games. If they took away your number one option on offense and defense, then you're going to have to figure out a way to beat us another way. But I think that just teams now, like you were saying in the NFL, are just way too dynamic, and player skill sets are just far too high to depend on taking away a number one option and expecting that a team is not going to be able to beat you 2 or 3 ways, and that you're going to have to figure out a way to stop 2 or 3 different ways that they can beat you, right? Like there's a number of win cons on each of these teams to
especially when your offense can't produce more than 3 points on the day.
Exactly.
Right? There was no chance in any regard.
Just wanted to touch on that and the benching of Mac Jones in favor of Bailey Zappi. Patriots fans, I don't feel bad for you at all. Go polish your trophies or something. All right, let's move on. You want to talk about this Bears and Broncos game? Did you get a chance to watch this one?
Yeah, I watched a more of this than a lot of them, for sure.
Just back to what we were saying off the top. Vance Joseph, this is a guy that
we're
Justin Fields was like there were memes of this that I saw of just how wide open like many targets were, and he's just like not the guy. Like this was a big prove it year for Justin Fields, and so far I think a lot of Bears fans would agree with me. He is not showing that he's the guy just at all in any respect. But yet this is a guy that can come into your stadium, or I guess that can come into the game against your defense and go 28 for 35 for 335 yards and 4 touchdowns and only throw 1 pick to what is supposed to be one of the best defenses in the league. Spencer, I didn't know they were giving out jobs to lose games. You and I should be making that money. I can lose a game. Give me some money. I'll go lose a game for you.
Right.
It's insanity.
Yeah, it's a toss up here, Ryan. But who do you think was the worst at their job this week? Was it Daniel Jones or was it Vance Joseph?
Oh my!
I'm gonna have to give it to Daniel Jones because Vance Joseph did not repeat his performance of last week, where he put on a masterclass of horrible defensive coaching.
Vance Joseph pulled a W, so I guess a win's a win.
But that being said, on the Bears side, I would like to shout out Khalil Herbert with a nice little breakout game here.
Finally,
man, I'm a dumb idiot who dropped him in fantasy because I got impatient. And all signs kind of pointed toward Roshan Johnson, starting to take control, take the reins a bit. But I think it was more or less inevitable that Herbert was going to kind of distance himself in that competition to some degree. Herbert has been very, talented his entire time he's played with the Bears. I think he was the main reason that they allowed Montgomery to walk to the Lions, who had himself a freaking day. But, yeah, I mean, like we said, Montgomery's a really talented back, but so is Herbert. And I honestly would have expected more from Herbert in this game, considering the absolute abysmal run defense that Denver has shown so far this year. But still, to get to 100 yards on the day, 18 carries, it's a healthy day. It's encouraging to see that at least the talent that the Bears thought they had is still talented. DJ Moore with a nice bounce back as well.
That's
in this
what
game.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah,
speaking of
take it over, go for it.
Speaking of being patient, my God, finally, DJ Moore, get this man the ball. This is the issue. Justin Fields, you are an incredibly talented athlete, but there's no more excuses. There's too much talent on this offense to make the excuse of your inexperience or your talent that surrounds you. That excuse is over. When you play a team that is as sorry as the Broncos, and in fact, these are two of the bottom teams in the league, and they're just shooting it out, and this is the game where you can finally get your connection with DJ Moore going. This is a guy that needs to be getting 12 targets a game, and that's just not what's happening at this point. I'm finally glad that he was able to have himself a day for 8 catches, 131 yards, and a touchdown. In fact, Fields completed passes to 8 different targets this game. Just, again, goes to show that this is a Denver defense that, on paper, has all the talent in the world, has the talent to be a top 5 defense in the NFL, and yet you're letting a guy like Justin Fields complete 8 passes to 8 different receivers on you.
Well, I think that begs the question, right, Ryan? Like, how much credit do we give Justin Fields for this game? I mean, he really did look
almost none.
Right.
I would say.
I think I'm pretty close to that myself. I'm not willing to change my opinion of where Justin Fields has been. Although what I will say is, as you all know, audience members in the breakdown, I did say that I think Justin Fields was a really good bet for like a dark horse MVP candidate. And he's not that.
He has all the talent in the world.
He's not that,
Certainly.
though. He's not that, though. And he won't be this year. But that being said, this is closer to the version of Fields that I thought we were getting this year. I mean, 335 yards just passing is pretty unbelievable for Justin Fields, considering he has done absolutely nothing for most of the year. But yeah, I think it does speak to this Denver defense is as advertised. It's horrible. They allowed 4 scores through the air, only a single interception on Fields. On the other side of the ball, though, I do want to give Russell Wilson his flowers.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
Had a good game here,
Yeah.
Efficient game, 3 touchdowns that he threw.
Only 7 incompletions on the day, 223 yards for 3 touchdowns. And let's just back up a little bit, okay? Let's go back to last week. Let's take a look at this stat line here. Where was this?
And I mean, I was going to mention too, Cortland Sutton getting himself another touchdown. I mean, somebody save this guy from himself.
Yes.
Somebody sign this man as a free agent. Cortland Sutton's a talented receiver, and he is on a tear as far as the red zone production goes right now.
Yeah. Russell Wilson, even going back to week 2, 27 for 39, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Sam Howell. 18 for 32, 308 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 pick. And then even against the Dolphins, which I again, that is a defensive loss far more than it's an offensive loss, like a lack of being able to put up points. Russell Wilson is no longer the problem in Denver. I think that clearly Sean Payton is able to come in and put together an offensive scheme that Russell Wilson understands, that he can thrive in. He is playing markedly better than last year through this point of the season. Russell Wilson is no longer the problem in Denver. The teams are doing more with less than Russell Wilson right now. It is just a far bigger problem than Russell Wilson. In fact, Russell Wilson is playing a lot better than he was at this point last season. I just wanted to make that point because Russell Wilson played really, really well against this team this week, and they were able to finally squeeze out a win from the grasp of defeat, as they seem to always be in. But yeah, it was just another game of 2 defenses that just have no idea what they're doing, and I think that. Where are the design runs for Justin Fields, right? Like this is what made him spectacular. There was that game against the Dolphins last year where he ran for, I think it was over 200 yards, and they just couldn't stop him. This is a guy that you need to get in open space. Like this is not a guy where his strengths are going to be being the field general, sitting in the pocket with maneuvering the pocket and getting the ball downfield and being accurate and efficient. This is a guy where you got to get him out in space. You got to design runs. Get the defense sucked in a little bit, then maybe he can take the top off with some of the talent that you have on the field. But these are 2 just completely mismanaged rosters to me.
Well, I agree with you, Ryan. There needs to be more designed runs, but what I will say is, I think to some degree, Eberflus is kind of counting on Justin Fields. Show me you've progressed. Show me you've developed. Show me that you can go out there and if the reads
hit a wide open target.
Not only that, if the reads aren't there, make your own scramble drill, pick up extra yards on your feet without having a designed run play. I think that's really been the biggest problem with Justin Fields is his decision making is horrific. I've seen multiple breakdowns of multiple wide open receivers, and the guy just ducks his head down and runs straight into the pile in front of him for negative yardage. It's
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So that's really the problem, right? Justin Fields is talented enough. He can make those plays. He just needs to get his mind right and make the right play, take what's given far more often. I don't think that just simply giving Justin Fields a couple or 3 or however many more designed run plays is going to just suddenly fix this offense. Justin Fields needs to show that he can make the correct decisions to pick up the most yardage in each situation, and he's just doing the opposite of that most times. So
there are so many quarterbacks this year, it seems, trying to play so much hero ball. I think Zach Wilson is a huge victim of this as well.
But I would like him. I would at least like to see Justin Fields play hero ball. Show me something.
Yeah.
Don't play scared, man.
I think so much of what these young, really raw, talented quarterbacks are forgetting is that the greatest to ever do it was the greatest to ever do it because he got the ball out in under 2 seconds nearly every goddamn time he got the snap. He knew what to do with the ball, and he was decisive, and he made good decisions. And it made him the greatest quarterback of all time. They are not there. It seems like there's quarterbacks that are really reluctant to take what the defense gives them and be more of a game manager and to put themselves in positions where they can maybe scramble outside of the pocket, where they are put into positions where they're going to have higher chances of success if they need to play hero ball a little bit. But anyway, I digress. These are young quarterbacks that are certainly more talented than I am, and I have never been set foot on an NFL field, so what do I know? I'm just telling you all like I see it.
I think it's time to move Sam Howell ahead of this tier of quarterback. I think Sam Howell needs to be mentioned above guys like Russell Wilson and especially Justin Fields. And C.J. Stroud is quickly moving his way beyond this tier as well. There's
100%.
a changing of the guard occurring right in front of our eyes in the NFL at quarterback. So
Yep. 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well,
do you
that's just
think,
about all the
man?
games that I wanted to cover, Spencer. Were
Yeah.
there any that you were particularly dying to talk about that we didn't touch on?
Not really. I mean, maybe Raiders Chargers. It was kind of a weird game. I'm interested to see how Herbert, progresses with that hand injury.
Finger game.
Yeah, thank God it's not his throwing hand, but it was pretty obvious that he was having a hard time taking the snap after that injury.
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff.
Have to go in shotgun. Yeah.
But what is happening with the Raiders right now, Ryan? That's the last thing I want to ask you. What is going on over there?
Josh McDaniels is what's happening.
Aiden
Every time.
O'Connell. Don't even come at me with this Aiden O'Connell hype train anymore. I said it from the start. This guy is untalented. He's middle tier. He's so not even an NFL quarterback. It's not even funny. This guy would be lucky to end up as a backup. And
Yeah.
frankly, the one thing I will point out with this game, I watched a good amount of it. Like Devontae Adams,
Still him.
you are unbelievable. The fact that he was their entire offense. There was a drive. I kid you not, Ryan. Devontae Adams had like 5 receptions in a row and picked up like 3 first downs on a single drive. It's insane because, as I said, I'm out on Aiden O'Connell. I've never been in on him. The fact that he can come out and actually look competent with Devontae Adams and just get these wide open catches.
Yeah.
Hats off to Devontae Adams. He's a freak show, man. That was
Well, he
special,
and Josh
what he did.
Jacobs reportedly there are rumors that they're growing increasingly frustrated with the team's inability to win. And I know that Devontae Adams has never really shied away from the fact that he wants to go where he can win. And isn't it ironic that I think the place where he maybe fits in the best, where they really need a wide receiver one, is for him to go back to Green Bay, go back home, go play with Jordan Love, who's clearly playing very well. He's clearly a step above all of these guys, clearly better than Aiden O'Connell. I'm curious of your thoughts on this, actually. Where are you
what
putting,
about-
like...
Where am I putting?
Where are you putting Jordan Love, like, in the conversation of, like, these guys like Sam Howell or, like, the Desmond Ritters, the Justin Fields? He's playing very well, I would say.
Yeah, he's a tough eval right now. He's had obviously some awesome games so far, so that's rising him in my opinion. But just recently had a bit of a down week. He's still just a great decision maker. I think that's the thing that comes away. Everything that Justin Fields isn't, he is.
Right.
And he's not. I don't think he's really nearly as talented physically as Justin Fields is. But like, frankly, it comes down to the Brock Purdy discussion. It's like, how talented does a guy need to be if he's going to make all the right decisions for me, and he's going to be efficient, and he's going to distribute well. And that's really the mold I see Love in, is he's playing point guard for the Packers right now, and they had an underrated collection of receiving talent. And guys like Musgrave and obviously Deontay Wicks has come out and looking pretty, or I think that's his first name, Wicks, right? He had a nice few games there. They're getting Christian Watson back, who was productive in his first game. So like, at the end of the day, I think the Packers were always pretty talented in terms of their defense, and the defense is playing better, and their offensive skill positions were underrated this whole time. It turned out.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, the jury's out. I know I kind of gave you a non-answer there, but
No, I completely agree. I mean, there was just some rumors floating around that Devontae Adams could potentially request a trade, and looking at potential trade destinations for him. And somebody said that the Packers makes the most sense, and I couldn't agree more with that.
What about Carolina? I'd throw Carolina in the mix for Adams. They're in
Houston.
Desperate need. Yeah, I mean, Houston would be phenomenal as well. Any of the young quarterbacks that have played well, but I think in terms of teams that'd be willing to give up the amount of assets necessary to bring him in, I think Carolina would be probably top of the list, considering they're as desperate as it comes at wide receiver. They've stockpiled assets pretty well. But yeah, I don't know. Houston's a good one too. So,
well, all right, Spencer. I think that about does it for me. I was very happy to get to recap another week of NFL action with you after your vacation. Glad that you went and had a good time, and man, we got more football. We got more football rolling. What's on the slate for next week? Let's see. First game. Oh, brother. We got Broncos Chiefs Thursday night, baby.
Broncos Chiefs. Oh boy. Can they top 70 points?
Go for 73.
There needs to be an over-under for whether Vance Joseph has a job at the end of that game. He might be fired mid-game.
I'm taking the under. Yeah, under 2 quarters.
He's going to pull a Vontae Davis and just walk out of the stadium in the third quarter.
Well, as always, it was a great time with you. We got the first bye week of the year, week 5, so not as many games to cover, but still plenty of NFL action to come, and we will be back next week to go over that action with you. And thank you everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment. We really appreciate the engagement, and we really appreciate you checking out our show. And we will see you next time.
Good times, brother. Rubler Nation.
Bye-bye.